Well, hello again. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate finishing the Van Gogh remix painting. While I do, I'm going to provide tips and guidelines that can help make you more successful, and if you follow them, it will ensure that you earn yourself a grade you can be proud of. Number 1, paint the shape solid first. Just paint. Paint it fast. No need to be gentle or overly careful. Speed is good during this step. Just cover those shapes and then move on. Tip number 2, paint lines. Lots and lots of lines. Every square inch of the canvas should be covered in lines. Short, bold, thick lines. The canvas should be covered with them. And because you first painted the shapes a solid color, it should be easier to make it feel covered in lines without white gaps all over. Tip number 3, make the lines stand out. Each shape or subject should contain a mix of different colors and/or shades of lines. If all the lines in a particular area are the same, then those lines really aren't going to stand out. So, it's important to have lines with different colors and values. Tip number 4, go with the flow. In each one of the shapes, the lines work together by flowing in the same direction, just like a flock of birds in the sky or a school of fish in the sea. The sky uses direction of lines to show how the sky moves and flows across the painting. The solid 3D objects look 3D, all because lines flow together along the surface of the object, showing us how that 3D object curves and bends. Tip number 5, contrast is your friend. But hey, what that contrast is? Spread a bunch of light values around to different places in the painting. Then spread a bunch of dark values around the painting and tell me you don't see the difference. Difference is the key. That's what contrast is. We all like difference. Difference is good. And when you can spread those differences throughout the whole painting, it's even better. Tip number 6. You can blend without actually blending or mixing the paints on the canvas. Say what? Since we're using a whole bunch of lines like Van Gogh did, there's not actually a whole bunch of blending or mixing that's happening. So even though you can't really do a whole bunch of actual technical blending, you can make colors gradually transition to other colors simply by controlling the amount of lines of a color you put in an area. So, for instance, maybe you want to make it look like dark green gradually changes to light green. How do you do that with lines? Well, you can put a bunch of dark green lines in one area. Then, as you move away from that area, paint a little less dark green lines and add a few lighter green lines instead. As you move even further on from that area, add a little less dark green and a little more lighter green. And just keep following that same pattern until finally you're painting a lot of the light green lines and only a few dark green lines. You can do that same thing with all kinds of color transitions. If you want to go from red to orange to yellow to white, maybe purple to blue to light blue to white, all you have to do is control the ratio of colored lines in any particular area. And as you want to slowly change to another color, you slowly change the ratio. Tip number 7. You can use lines to create both hard edges to shapes and soft edges to shapes. What I mean by this is that sometimes you're going to want to have a nice, crisp, clear, solid line, or what appears to be a solid line, around your shapes to separate it from what the other shapes are. And you can use your lines to do that, almost like an outline, but not exactly. I've done this in places like my blue domed cities and my green crystal landscape. On the other hand, you might want to have soft edges between different shapes. And I've done that in places like the stars versus the background, or the moon versus the background, or the windy swirl shape versus the background. Those outlines are not super hard edged. I've organized where the lines go to produce a little bit of a soft edge, or a blurry edge, or a faded edge. So you can do both, having hard edges or soft edges to shapes, and they're both good. It really just depends on the effect that you're going for. Tip number 8, just paint over it. I got to tell you that through the process of creating and painting this green crystal-like landscape, I found that I really didn't like how it turned out. It's okay, but it really didn't have what I wanted it to have. So my plan is, when I do this project again, probably next year, I'm going to go ahead and decide to paint over that whole bottom half of the painting and do something completely different. And what I'm giving you permission to do is that when you encounter something like that, feel free to change directions, paint over it, and try something else. All right, last tip of the day. Tip number 9. Add finishing touches. This is where you really inspect your painting to see what details you can add to really make your artwork shine. It might mean that you need to add a few more white streaks for highlights, or a few more deep dark values for shadows, or place a little detail here or there to make something stand out a little bit better. It's kind of the last run through and inspection of your artwork before you decide that it's finished. All right, that's it. Good luck. Have fun.